Um, Hello, I think we've started now. The webinar is live. My
Amazing.
name's Millie Kendall. I'm the CEO of the British Beauty Council, and I am your host for this afternoon's webinar. I've got some lovely guests with me. We've all managed to get on. We're all good, right? We're all here. We can hear, see each other. I would like to introduce you to my panelists. My first panelist is Kirsty McCall. Wave your hand. Kirsty is a hair and makeup artist has been a hair and makeup artist for 23 years. She trained at London College of Fashion. She's run hair salons and makeup counters before turning to bridal 15 years ago. She's done over 1,500 weddings. I've had over 1,500 weddings. Could have used you for my hair and makeup. And she's won awards in the wedding industry for her work. And over the past sort of 12 months, Kirsty's really become a massive voice for the wedding industry. And I've been a big fan of your comms and your output. Well done on that. My next guest is Andy Millward. Andy?
Hello.
Andy's a facialist based in Harborne, Birmingham, and has been in the industry for 8 years. Alongside his clinical work, he's also been an educator for cosmetics and a tutor for students doing their CIBTAC Level 4 Aesthetics Diploma. Thanks, Andy. How are you feeling today?
Good. Yeah.
Good. And D.Thomas, wearing a beautiful top, Debbie.
Just, I like bright.
We all wore black uniforms, so I'm really envious of you. Should have gone a little brighter.
There's
today.
always one. There's always one.
Well, you know, you've got to stand out in a crowd, haven't you? So Debbie's a beauty therapist of 22 years. Last 17 years, she's been working in aesthetics. Opened her laser skin clinic in 2009. The D.Thomas clinic which is in Chelsea in central London. Debbie's very well known with press, with media, and obviously has does a lot of speaking, panel talks, speaking opportunities, etc. So welcome. Thanks so much for being here. Obviously, we're here in support of the Beauty Back Trust. It's an amazing opportunity for us to be able to support our industry. And I just wanted to have a chat with you about communications and, you know, how we have reached out to people over the past 12 months, how we think we should be reaching out in the future. So tell me a little bit about your year. How much have you worked and have you managed in and out of lockdown? Kirsty, over to you. How's it been?
It's definitely been the
Shit.
most year of my life. Yeah, it's been crazy. I think I'm a different person coming out of this than I was going in, that's for sure. So just a bit about my business. So I usually do around 100 weddings a year. Last year, or in the pandemic year, I did 7. Which is just ridiculous. I still can't quite get my head around that I've basically lost 93% of my business in a year. And the thing obviously with weddings, it was postponing, or, you know, some were cancelling, some brides just didn't even know what to do, and they were coming to us for the answers. And I found that really challenging. Even in the first couple of weeks, you know, everyone's coming to me, well, what do I do? What's going on with my booking? And I felt very overwhelmed. And my response to that was, right, I need to get involved here. I need to campaign. I need to lobby. I need to know the answers that are being asked of me. So I kind of took that role and just started fighting for my industry, for beauty, for weddings, for all of it, which has been quite good, because then people come to me with questions and I can actually answer them.
Did that feel sort of a normal, was that like a normal reaction for you? Or did you kind of surprise yourself when you sort of started to be sort of the champion of the wedding industry? Was that a bit of a shock?
Yeah, it still doesn't really sit right with me. I feel a bit, you know, a bit of the old imposter syndrome going on, but I sort of don't see it as that it's about me. I see it as that I am speaking up for the people, my colleagues, basically, because actually what we found in the first couple of months was that the wedding industry wasn't even a recognised industry with government. No. Just weren't.
Welcome to my world.
Yes. So even that, just getting them to understand that beauty is an industry, that weddings are an industry, and that we're actually blooming important. And we bring a lot of money to the economy. Weddings bring 14.7 billion to the economy, and yet we've been overlooked forever. until this year. So it's been a very positive thing in the outcome of, you know, that actually we are being recognised, but it's been challenging along the way. Definitely.
Andy, who do you think really struggled in the past 12 months? Is it, you know, I mean, obviously you've not been able to work in the same capacity, but do you think your students or people that you work with have really struggled? How have you communicated with them? Because presumably if you're educating people, you're in a sort of one-to-one clinical environment. You've obviously not been able to do that. So how have you reached out to them?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I don't teach now, actually. Last year was the first year that I hadn't been teaching. So it was, I'd always been kind of like dual role, half, you know, 50% of my time kind of educating, 50% of my time in clinic. And it was it was probably not the best year to decide to step away and completely solely focus on clinic work. But so yeah, it was the first full year of being solely in clinic and not actually doing any.
Right. So that's a bit of a blow, isn't it? Because obviously you've taken that leap, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, hold on a second. I've worked. How many months have you worked in the past 12 months? Must be 3, 4, maybe.
So I mean, thankfully I've been doing online consultations, so that saved me, and that's you know, managed to cover you know, rent and other kind of costs and things. But actually, in terms of being in clinic, I worked it out as like 62 days out of the whole year, because I just specialise like in treatments on the face. So I know when they originally relaxed the first lockdown back in July, I think we had to wait until it was the 15th of August until we could actually do anything on the face.
I remember that date very well.
Yeah.
So when you've been reaching out to your clients, have they been sort of worried about the treatments themselves? Like, how did you communicate what you were doing? Because obviously everything's up in the air, everything's changed. So how did you communicate that with them? Like, did you have to pacify them a little bit, or did they seem sort of willing to come back in on those 62 days?
I think, yeah, most of the clients were kind of chomping at the bit, ready to get back in, you know, especially if they'd already been halfway through a course prior, you know, back in sort of January, February time, if they were halfway through a course and wanting to complete that. There were a few that were a little bit apprehensive about coming back in, but on the whole, I think most of the people were really comfortable. But in terms of kind of communication and keeping them kind of up to date with what was going on, I was conscious about using like on my online booking system. So I was using that as my main communication tool to keep in touch with my existing clients, but also trying not to be sort of over the top with communications, because I was just conscious that
there's a bit, there can be too much, can't there? And it can be a bit sort of I think you have to manage that.
You know, if they were getting communications from me, who else were they getting communications from? You know, it can get to a little bit of a point where they were just, you know, the emails might have been falling on deaf ears. So it's kind of striking that balance, I think, was really important. But
you know, it's really interesting. Somebody was telling me the other day that a very, very small percentage of our industry actually use online bookings.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like a very, very ridiculously small percentage, like less than 30% use online booking systems, which I think is unbelievable given how far we've moved forward with this sort of technology within the beauty industry. Debbie, how many days did you work last year?
It probably quite similar to Andy, really, because we've obviously our clinic is 98% facial treatments. We do a little bit of laser hair removal, but we're known as a skin clinic. So certainly it was less than 100 days since last March we've worked. And slightly different to the other guys, as you know, we've got a central London premises, we've got 18 staff. So we had to not just, you know, it wasn't just paying the rent that we didn't, you know, we had the furlough, and furlough only part paid for some of the things. You had to top it up. We still had the insurance costs, you still had all of these things. So it was a really tough time, you know, worrying about, I mean, I was just as gutted and worried about my staff and my clients as I was about my business, because I've got people relying on me, and the thought that they weren't going to be looked after, because obviously in the very first instance we didn't have furlough. So I burst into tears on the day we shut the clinic doors, burst into tears, because I just thought, how are we going to do this? How are we going to support our team? you know, make sure our business can still open, do all of this stuff. And fortunately, with the furlough scheme and taking out huge loans, we are still in a position where we will open and we'll continue to work. But it's been a really difficult time. But the one thing that we did do last year, which had a very positive outcome, is we were part of the class action that took the insurance companies to court. Now, that's only good news for some people, because there are some insurance policies where you're clearly not covered. It is a contract. It either says in there if you are or you're not. We were very fortunate that the wording in ours means that we are due to get some insurance for business interruption.
Yeah. I mean, that was a real challenge, wasn't it, in those first 3 months? But then, given, you know, there was so many challenges in that first 3 months. But I think we just all thought, well, it's only going to be a few weeks.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
none of us assumed we'd be, you know, in this now still, you know, a year down the line. And, you know, and weirdly, we've almost gotten used to it in a strange way. I feel like we've sort of almost gotten used to this sort of very strange way of working and communicating. But do you think, Debbie, during that time, you know, how did you communicate with your staff? You know, obviously now we're on Zoom, but were you, you know, obviously there must have been a lot of support you needed to give them as 18 people, their livelihoods, you know, they feel like it's sort of gone.
Just reassurance that we, for the foreseeable future, we felt like we were in a stable position. They all did obviously take, well, most of them did take pay cuts, because either they were only on 80% of their normal wage, but some of our therapists get very good bonuses, and we weren't obviously paying bonuses. We weren't paying, you know, a full 100% wage. So everyone was affected from that perspective. But we were just able to continually reassure them that, you know, we were still in a position as a business their jobs were secure. If anything changes, we would let them know. But so it was really just that reassurance that as a business we were going to be opening again.
Do you think at that time you showed vulnerability to them? I mean, I know that, like, I've broken, and here I go again. I've been very, like, my tears have been free flowing. Do you think that vulnerability was sort of came out of you at that time?
I think
I'm just being really honest and transparent, because I think we've all, you know, I think we need to probably talk just to save our own mental well-being about vulnerability and how it affected us. And I do feel that that's really helped me get through it. And I wondered if that was something you shared with your team.
Certainly in the week we went into the lockdown, I think they did see that to me, because I was very emotional at work, you know, and they did see the fact that I was struggling with the whole thing and the worry that I had about it all. I mean, it was very clear that, you know, there was an emotional element to it all, not just the business side. I mean, I've built my business up over a long time, like we all have. You know, you don't just suddenly open your doors and you're busy and you've got a reputation. You've got to work really hard for it. You know, and I've really put my all into my business for forever. You know, all of even before I opened up my clinic doors, I've always been a very passionate worker. I've always pushed myself. I've always gone above and beyond. And you finally, I mean, honestly, the last probably the 2 years before last year was the first time as a business we were really high and clear. You know, we were almost debt free. We were, you know, we were in a great position. We had some savings. We were planning on expanding. You know, and you're there with all these amazing ideas and you're bouncing around and you're really energetic, and then suddenly everyone's gone like, right, shut. And you're just like, what?
It's like, it feels like the rug's been pulled out from underneath you. I mean, I've talked to many businesses, and our industry was like on that, you know, amazing trajectory that, you know, we were, you know, everyone was doing so well at that time. It couldn't have possibly come at a worse time. Kirsty, how do you think that you've managed your sort of your communications using your vulnerability? Do you think that's sort of been part of the sort of the way you've managed communicating with your clients and your, you know, colleagues?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting the first couple of months. I would say up until July, it was kind of, I kept how scared I was as a business owner away from my social media. You know, I tried to inform people as much as I could. I was as honest as I felt that I needed to be. And I've always had that very personal connection. I think with weddings, especially because you're there on their wedding morning, you've got that very intimate it's quite emotionally invested with our clients, and it's, you know, it's meant to be the day of the dreams. It's so much pressure. So I kind of kept how I was feeling inside away. And then I had a really bad response from a bride, and it was actually around the whole thing of beauty being left shut and hair being opened, and we had that horrible 6 weeks.
July 4th to August 15th.
Yeah. Forever etched in my mind. And she was meant to get married on the 1st of August. That was when we got, you know, less than 24 hours notice that beauty wasn't going ahead. And I received this horrendous message where she was basically calling me every name under the sun if I wasn't willing to work illegally and do the hair and the makeup. I had a total breakdown, and I went upstairs. My husband cuddled me for ages, and then I went upstairs and I just bawled my eyes out into my phone, and just said, I'm so sorry, but I can't be professional right now, because the business is me, I'm the business, and I'm getting personally attacked. I'm trying everything I can to
of course.
do everything. And I put that out, and I was so scared. I didn't even look at my phone for hours. And my husband also said, you know, really, should you have put that snotty crying video out? But you know what? It really worked.
I've been snotty and crying on many a webinar, let me tell you. It's honestly, I've broken down so many times on webinars. It's unbelievable. I mean, I think, you know, that to me was a defining moment, because I remember seeing that and thinking, you know, I think you represented how we all felt, you know, because it's so out of our control.
Yeah,
that it was, you know,
and
and
calling me brave, and I just thought, no, I'm just the one that's stupid and has put this out. I didn't feel very brave, but actually I got wonderful comments from my brides, which was so nice. They immediately backed off and gave me a bit of space to be able to figure out what was going on. But the most important part for me was the connection with my colleagues in the industry, my direct competitors. Suddenly all of that fell away.
Yeah, that is definitely something that's happened, hasn't it? I mean, I've noticed that it's the warmth and the sort of the coming together of the industry, you know, and not being afraid to show vulnerability and then reaching out across the aisle, you know, to somebody else.
Video kind of it meant that I ended up being part of the What About Weddings campaign, which has been huge for the wedding industry. You know, it kind of opened some weird doors for me, in that I was able to kind of speak on behalf of all my colleagues that didn't feel confident enough. Maybe their businesses were newer, they didn't feel like they could be that honest with their clients, whereas, you know, I'm well established, I've got, you know, a decent reputation, and I thought, no, I need to speak up right now, if not for me but for everyone else.
And Andy, how do you think you felt? I mean, you know, have you been on social media kind of sharing how you've been feeling, or have you been sharing that directly with your clients? Have you felt like you've had to be kind of quite brave and sort of put your best foot forward and, you know, show a brave face?
Both, really, and actually a lot of what Kirsty was saying there, I can kind of relate to a lot myself. So I think directly to clients over email, I was very sort of open with them in terms of, you know, I literally had no information, so I can only really give you what I can give you, and I'll be as supportive as possible to you. But, you know, it's difficult when I haven't got the information to go on. Over social media, I would say it kind of came in peaks and troughs for me. Like, there were times when I was definitely feeling like confident and like I should, you know, and trying to be as supportive to other colleagues within the industry as much as possible. But then there were definitely times where, like, my anxiety levels were through the roof. I've suffered with anxiety for years on and off anyway, and there was definitely, over the last 12 years, it's been really tested. There are times when I'll just disappear from social media for a couple of weeks because I know it's an anxiety trigger, and I can't cope with that as well as everything else that's going on. And then there's other times when actually I'm feeling really, you know, high and really trying to put educational information out there and trying to support my colleagues obviously with my kind of educator background, trying to just keep spirits high and trying to give people more education and information in that way. But then, you know, it does get to a point where you crash again, and then all of a sudden, like, your anxieties are high and you just can't even bear opening Instagram up, let alone putting any content out for anyone. Not sure if I've like been completely open and honest with my feelings as as well as Kirsty obviously has been in that case. I think there were a couple of times I put something on stories to say, actually, I'm feeling pretty shit, right, and low right now. But I think particularly when you're working with clients as well, obviously we're always really conscious that on social media, it's not just colleagues that are following you, it's also clients.
Yeah.
And they kind of do look up to you as well, especially if they're seeing you for you know, skin issues, and they're going through a lot of
they're vulnerable in themselves, aren't they? And they've come to you because you're a safe pair of hands.
Exactly. And you've kind of got to be that, you know, we're beauty therapists for a reason. There's the therapy aspect of what we do.
Of course, yeah.
And actually to try and be that pillar of strength for somebody else when actually you're feeling really low yourself is really, really difficult.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is that the three of you all work in the face area.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the things that really hit us hard was when we were doing all the government guidance, when we started doing it in March, the facial area was referred to as a breathing zone. But as time went on, and when the actual guidance was put out on July 4th, and we were told only hairdressers could open, they changed the wording to high risk zone. And that to me was like a comms nightmare. And I fought for months to get that removed from the guidance, because it just seemed to me, that was like, I'm going to sue you. You know, I was getting really angry about, I'm going to sue the government for damage to our reputation. But it was like that sort of, I felt that put us in a more vulnerable position. We were already in a very vulnerable position. And then that sort of, you know, that made it even worse. And I feel that, you know, the clients that come to see you guys, whether it's, you know, the most important day of their life, the wedding, or whether they do have a skin condition and they've come to you because they're very vulnerable, you know, they know you on a first name basis. You're not just somebody that stands in a shop when they walk in, you know, to buy a dress. They know you well and you know them. And so, you know, who's a therapist? You know, it's very difficult when you're constantly giving to people on any platform, whether that be via Zoom or a webinar or Instagram or on the phone. Like, where's your source coming, you know, where's your source of support coming from? And I think that was seeing the community come together to support each other. I think it's really, you know, particularly around things like Beauty Backed, has really, to me, been the biggest success story of this whole 12 months, really. I mean, we've managed through with some bits of furlough and, you know, that being deferred and, you know, grants, etc. But actually the most important thing is everyone came together. And I think that was obviously, Instagram's been very dynamic in that sense. You know, and I think that I've been the same as you, come off and I go on and off. I'm not a big sort of sharing of how I feel on Instagram. I've done it on webinars instead. Anyway, it's my chosen mode of crying. It's my place to cry. So my next question to you guys, and just to say, we're going to run for about 45 minutes and then we'll open it up to some questions from the audience. So what channels have you used to communicate mostly? So just one word answer to each of you. Andy, what channels have you used mostly to communicate?
Email and Instagram.
Debbie?
Yeah, the same, email and Instagram, I think.
I'd say mine would have to be WhatsApp and Instagram.
That's interesting. WhatsApp. I've used WhatsApp a lot this year as well.
Yeah, it's that instant connection with my clients. And what I've actually done throughout it, and I hear what Andy was saying about not wanting to overwhelm people with constantly sending out these, you know, professional looking emails. I would just sit there on like a Monday and think, right, who am I thinking of right now? And pick 10 brides and just send them a little message just going, thinking of you this morning, hope you're okay, kiss kiss.
Yeah.
And just that. And I wasn't saying what's going on with your booking, what are you doing about your wedding. It was just, I'm thinking of you. And that connection actually has really helped.
I saw something, there was a hairdresser who put something on Instagram yesterday, was it the day before, and actually made me well up as usual. And it was, have you call your grandparents today? I mean, I don't have any grandparents, and you know, I'm that old that they would have been in their hundreds, but I don't have any grandparents. And I just thought that's such a lovely thing. Have you called your grandparents today? Just a sort of simple, you know, communication, just some way to connect with somebody. You know, it's been such a sort of long 12 months and a lot of people have seen nobody. You know, I know my aunt lives for getting her hair and nails done. She's not had that for 12 months, really. you know, either she's shielding or WhatsApping, and that's basically her entire life is around, you know, those two things. Do you think your clients have received WhatsApps well? Do you think that's a good way of communicating with them?
Yeah, definitely. It was interesting actually. When I would send out an email or something kind of more official, I would get less of a response. Whereas where I would send these little texts here and there, people, and I've done it with people calling me from the electricity company. I suddenly open up to them. I find myself crying down the phone. It's like people were doing that with me. They would go, you know, well, not about the wedding. I've had a really rubbish morning, and your text has made me feel really great. Things like that. And when you're building trust with your clients, and you've not been able to have the trial or all those things in the run up to the wedding, it's been this massive gap in our relationship. So I felt like just checking in with them now and again would make them feel supported and like they had a chance to rant, because my goodness, they could ring me and rant about the wedding industry situation, and I will sit there and be on their side. Whereas maybe family members, other people, they don't quite get it. They're like, oh, you did your wedding, what's the big deal about that, you know? I got it.
Presumably what you do is quite unique in that you work on a client and they don't come back to you every week unless they're getting married like I do all the time. So your entire business is based on recommendation, isn't it? I mean, you know, you are, you know, if you've done a good job for them, they're going to go off and tell somebody else. So that's really important that you know, you give them the full package.
Yeah, the wedding industry is a very different beast in that really is about word of mouth. You have to make sure you go above and beyond with every single client, because it's not just that bride. You've got the 4 bridesmaids who will all be getting married in the next couple of years, and then they tell their cousins, and suddenly you've got this network. If you've got a really amazing wedding, 10 years down the line, I could still be getting a recommendation from that one wedding I did. So it is so important to connect instantly with a bride. And so I found that really difficult, having that taken away, and I can't be near people, I can't do it. So actually the WhatsApp was my way of breaking through. Yeah,
it's really clever. Debbie, who do you think has sort of helped you to raise your voice this past 12 months? Who do you think's like, who have you sort of looked at and thought, wow, they've really given me the confidence to speak up and, you know, talk about what I do and you know, my business? And
yeah, I mean, I've always been quite good at doing that anyway, but people that have sort of inspired me are, of course, you and your team. I mean, the fact that you've really stood out there and supported the whole industry.
You know, me and my team last year was me and one other person.
Yes.
Just so you know.
And you know,
bless her, Diana Kennedy, the backbone of the British Beauty Council. Yeah.
And I've seen I know quite a few of the other guys that support you as well, the hairdressers and stuff. I know a lot of them personally, so I know there's some incredible people.
The answer wasn't me, by the way, but anyway. But thank you.
But I just think that what I've felt is actually there's been so many people, exactly what's been mentioned already, just other people in the industry, and we're actually supporting and helping each other. So, you know, we're doing lives on each other's panels, where we've obviously, there's Clubhouse now, and there's a group of us. We are technically direct competitors, but we don't look at it like that. We're actually using it as a way to bring each other up and to try and be supportive as much as we can, because we need to do that now. I think, you know, we all need to help to raise the whole industry up, and by it being a positive industry, it benefits all of us.
I think it's worked. I mean, I think everything that you guys have done over the past 12 months has really helped me in terms of the government relations, because we've been so vocal that there's been no place for them to hide. So it's definitely helped. You know, it's not, you know, me knocking on the door on my own would have made no, you know, had no impact whatsoever. But with everybody kind of speaking up, it's really, you know, and also, like we said, everyone coming together, which still is the most beautiful part of this for me. One thing is clear, is that we've got very, very loyal clients. And I think that you all have, you're all very experienced at what you do. And again, your clients know you by name. Do you think that's unique to our sector? I mean, I'm trying to think of any other industry where you have that relationship or that level of communication with your client.
I can't think of any other industries that would be.
I mean, maybe a doctor, maybe your doctor. Well, even that, I don't really know his first name.
No, nowadays you don't even see the same doctor again
No,
anyway,
that's
unless
true,
you're private.
that's true.
So
I can't really think of any other industry where you have that kind of relationship with your, that's something that I think, in the next phase of this, once we get open and once we start to move on, I think we really need to talk about the relationship with the client and the practitioner, because I think that's so unique to our sector. That really should be the next thing that we platform, that we campaign on, because I think there are confidence levels, and we were told that in a panel talk earlier today, a lot of us are feeling not very confident, a bit nervous to get back to work. And I think that the confidence in, once you open those doors and there's clients come in, they go, hey, Debbie, hey, Andy, hey, Kirsty, how are you? All of a sudden, that's going to come flooding back, because there is, somebody's just said, there's a huge level of intimacy and trust involved between the client and practitioner. Do you think that intimacy has added to your communication strategy, and do you think that's really helped you to form that conversation?
I've probably found it harder because I do very well one-to-one, but that's my place where I sort of shine. So when I've got my client with me, I'm able to really, I don't know, it's about the touch. For me, it's a physical as well as a mental thing. Yeah. Whereas when we're doing, doing lives, I'm always happy to answer questions, and I do try and I do online consultations, but it doesn't feel quite the same. I like to be in someone's space.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have had to transition to, online. I mean, I can't bear Instagram Live. I absolutely, if I can do a Clubhouse instead of Instagram Live, I'm very happy. I don't like being sort of physically seen. I find that personally, I find it quite invasive. I'm not comfortable with it. And I think as a sort of makeup artist or beauty therapist, a lot of what you do is around touch. That's been stripped away from you. And you're left having to expose yourself. How's that changed? Because if you're used to intimacy, Andy, that's got to be really difficult, right? All of a sudden you've got a bloody great big screen in front of you while you're consulting your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been a means to an end. Like, I think if it wasn't for the fact of having access to online consultations and having these tools, then I don't know what position would be in now if we didn't have those. So it's been a necessary evil, I think. But yeah, absolutely, you can't be being hands-on with somebody face to face, especially like there's always certain things that you can't pick up on, like over Zoom, whether it's somebody's kind of little things that their body is communicating that maybe their mouth isn't saying. Tells you a lot about.
Yeah, mine is like the rubber tire that's around my waist that came out of nowhere. Yeah, but that's the thing, isn't it? Because physically, when people walk in, especially if you're dealing with sort of some kind of challenge with somebody's skin, oftentimes their physical full body well-being has an impact, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I approach things from a sort of holistic 360 approach, and there's certain things that you can pick up on in consultation, the way they're sitting, the way they're moving their hands, what they're doing, and there's certain things that will tell you a lot about whether they're a nervous person, they're an analytical type person, all of these kind of things.
You've just described me completely, like my hand's always in it, I'm always fidgeting, I'm always
describing myself.
I think that's really interesting, because I think that's sort of, like I said, that physical, I think we don't give ourselves often enough credit, or maybe we know it, and maybe we need to we need to sort of shout louder about our the benefit to people's well-being, that intimacy and that physical touch, what we do for people is amazing. I actually can't wait just to have someone put their hand on my shoulder while they're doing my highlights. I mean, it's just, those little things really do make a difference, don't they?
I mean, some of the people that I see when they come in for a consultation, the emotional levels, before we even get down to the actual skin concern, it can be incredible. Because normally if someone is coming to, it's a little bit different with wedding. I mean, weddings are way more emotional than anything we deal with, so you must be incredible with your clients. But when people come into us, it's you know, quite often we're the last port of call. You know, they've tried the doctors, they've gone to Boots, they've raided the thing, they've watched some YouTube chat, they've bought all this stuff, and now they're finally coming to you, and they really are hoping that you're going to have this magic wand for them. But all of their frustrations and their worries and their insecurities come out, and it's how we manage that and actually give them back some of their self-confidence. And I mean, when everyone says to me, what do you love most about what you do? It is, I mean, of course, it's the transformation of the skin, but it's actually the transformation of the person.
Yeah.
You know, how it changes how they look, how they sit, how they walk into a room, how they feel about themselves, how they'll go out into go out into the world and, you know, go for a job interview that they would never have done before because they felt so self-conscious. I mean, it impacts their lives on so many levels, not just the fact that, okay, they had some spots and now they maybe don't.
Well,
It's
also what you
everything
do very often is a treatment plan, isn't it? So it's not even an overnight fix. They have to keep coming back for a period of time to, you know, not always, but I would imagine for the most part that it's about the plan that you decide to sort of jointly, you know, create together, that is a benefit, and that's been yanked from them as well. There are, I mean, actually, after, is it April, June, May, June, about beginning of July, just before we opened the face area, sort of 2 weeks after August 1st, our phone did not stop ringing with clients that wanted to know whether they could see their practitioners because they had been on some sort of treatment, laser or something, and it had stopped very abruptly, and they were very distraught about the fact that they couldn't come back to see you. And that's been a real challenge for a lot of people, you know, their self-confidence, and back soon. And I think back for good, right? Do we think back for good?
I feel like it should be. I mean, the vaccine is rolling out at an incredible pace here, isn't it?
Yeah. How do you guys feel? Andy, Kirsty, do you think we're back for good?
Yeah, I don't
Andy's very hesitant. Andy's not sure.
I'm not sure yet. I'm basing this based on what happened with the first sort of lockdown, though, and I'm just yeah. No, I mean, no, you're right to be cautious, absolutely. But I mean, I do feel optimistic. I do feel sort of cautiously optimistic. Particularly, I think also the American rollout seems to be quite robust as well. So I think that's quite a positive sign. That they're on the mend politically, and there's no more sort of orange duck face in the White House. So last question, and then we'll go to questions from the attendees. So guys, get your questions ready, please. And if you wouldn't mind putting them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen, that would really help me so I can see the questions that you've got for the panelists here. What can other therapists do to use their networks and communications to bring their businesses back to where they were in 2019? Have you got any advice? Kirsty, over to you.
I think with regards to the wedding industry, I think first of all, I'd like to just say, touching on what you were saying before, knowing your worth now, like the fact that we have had to campaign for a year, constantly shouting at the government, saying the good things about what we do, how much we're worth, all of these things, I am now suddenly very, very aware of actually how much we bring to the table. We are therapists as well as artists, and we do so much more than just our skill set, as in putting makeup on face, you know, all those. We do so much more. And actually, it's for me, sort of coming out of this, I've really thought about my boundaries and the type of client that I want. And actually, out of 120 clients that I had when the pandemic hit, I've only had 3 that have been absolute nightmares, and the rest have been wonderful. And I thought, actually, those 3 people were not meant to be my clients. They are not the type of people that I connect with. And actually, it's about stopping for a second and thinking, do I want this client? Does this client want me? Is this a good fit? And having that ability to say no, because actually that really helps your mental health. And as we've said, the business is us. So if my mental health is suffering, which it has been massively through this year, I'm not going to be able to give that level of service and, you know, do all the wonderful things that I do for my clients. So I think it's just about setting your boundaries now. We're in this weird sort of lull before we're going to really...
Yeah, ready to pounce. Don't you feel like you're ready to pounce? Yeah, totally.
So just set your boundaries in now and blooming stick to them. Absolutely stick to them.
Have you had to fire any clients, Andy?
Not many, but one or two, yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it? How do you think that's because is it because they didn't support you, or they were just being difficult? You just felt like, I'm not going to do this anymore.
Yeah, I think it just gets to the point where you just feel like it's just not a right fit. Like Kirsty was saying, it's a two-way relationship, I think, between the practitioner or the therapist and the client. And if it's not working out for both of you, then it's not right. You're not there to kind of...
It's time to do a little bit of spring cleaning, people. I think. Debbie, have you had to fire any clients?
Over the years,
I don't know why I'm asking. I'm actually really curious.
Over the years, I have made some strategic decisions to
very nicely put.
To move some people on to someone that might be better suited to them.
This is how to communicate something on a webinar. I've taken a strategic decision to kindly move people on. That's so good.
I just yeah, I mean, there have been
Stick
a few
that in your email, people. I'm sorry, I've made a strategic decision to kind of move you on to someone else.
I know. I mean, there are some nightmare people on there, but look, not everyone can get on with everyone. And because we are so intimate with the people we're working with, there has to be a slightly higher connection. You know, there has to be that trust. There has to be that willingness to kind of work with each other. And if someone isn't in that place, then you're never going to be able to make them happy at all, and which means it's just going to end up becoming worse and worse nightmare down the road. So yeah, I try and spot them quite early on. During lockdown, I haven't had any issues with that. You know, anyone that's communicated with me has just been incredible and been incredibly supportive, which, you know, it keeps you going, really, doesn't it, when you get those.
And do you think there's anything like sort of one thing that you could say to people that would help to get their business back to where it was in 2019, or do you think it's completely changed? Or
I believe that if you had a good business before, you will have a good business. People are desperate to get back to us. I mean, absolutely desperate. We talked a lot about, and this will obviously be saved on the platform as well, so you can go watch it, but the financial talk that I did this morning with Dija, there's a lot of good stuff in there just to make sure that you're financial planning, because that's the thing that worries us all. Let's face it, we all know we've all got our talent, we've all got our ability, our passion, we've all got all of that still there. But the big worry for all of us is, how do we continue and catch up and pay for things and stuff like that? So
I think this has exposed that. I mean, I think for me, the thing I've learned the most, and the thing that I would sort of urge people to think about when going back to business, is sustainability. And it's about being a sustainable business model, or having a sustainable business model, so that you have the cash reserves, so that, God forbid, anything like this ever happens again, we are not, you know, knocking on every door, shouting from every rooftop, having to sort of, you know, and worrying about where we're going to get the next meal from, because that's been such a huge problem for our sector.
Well, my husband is also my business partner, and he's in charge of the financial side of the business. And about 2 years ago, he sat down with me and our bookkeeper, and he's like, I want to have enough money in the bank that if something happens, we can pay for everything up front for 6 months. And we laughed at him. We were just like, we don't need 6 months worth of money. When are we ever going to not be open for 6 months? I mean, who could have thought it?
Meg, isn't he? He's definitely had yeah. That's I mean, that is amazing.
But that having that financial planning and just awareness can make you sleep at night if you know what's going to happen. I mean, I think for me as a business, that's the bit that I worry about. I think that
so for my next wedding, Kirsty, I'm going to marry a man like Debbie's husband. Just in case you come across anyone that's not happy with the last wedding.
You just need to ask if he likes spreadsheets. And if
I
the
like
answer's
spreadsheets
yes,
though.
he's
That's the
in.
thing. I'm really geeky like that. Like I think I actually wanted to be an accountant when I was younger. I'm quite into spreadsheets. I'm gonna just ask, open this up and have a look at the questions. So somebody has said, Eve Duck has said, what would your advice be to the very new micro businesses that need to advertise to bring in clients after we reopen? So this is a really, Kirsty, do you want to answer this? So a small micro business,
I think it's about
where would they advertise?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm thinking of the wedding hair and makeup artists that do it from their living room, that type of thing. I think it's just about getting all of your old content, having a look at it, see if you can kind of rejig the pictures and just kind of look excited and put your content back out. Just remind people. I actually did it last week because I realized I went through my Instagram and, you know, however many scrolls, it's all campaign work. I haven't put any of my actual work out. So I just did a whole day where I was just like, look, this is what I actually do when I'm not scrolling.
Yeah.
So it's just about kind of relaunching yourself. And, you know, we haven't got new content, we get that, but just try and, you know, maybe edit it in a different way, or, you know, just try and make it look fresh and new. And then you're in people's minds then.
So Eve, who asked the former question, said she's very scared because she won't be able to bring in the clients because her business is very new. She'd only been up and running a couple of months. That's a really good piece of advice. So put your work out there for people to see, which I think is,
that is get in touch. You know, we've all connected, like you've said, Millie. So if she's in weddings, for example, reach out to a lot of wedding hair and makeup artists and just say, is there any chance I could come along and shadow you, assist you? Don't be scared to do that. I'm quite happy for anyone to message me and I'll tell them the dates and they just come along. You know, and you can pick up new skills, you can get new content, you can just learn so many things just by coming out on one wedding. So don't be scared to do that if you're just starting out.
And Andy, what do you think about local advertising, like sort of locally? So if you've got a business, how do you think, what's the best way to get sort of local custom in?
Yeah, I mean, definitely look at like local advertising. It also depends on, when she says micro business, like where she's based. Because it's going to be a different type of approach if you're based at home versus based on the high street, maybe.
Right.
If you're on the high street, it's a little bit easier because you've got the local community.
For traffic, yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I've always personally found Instagram a really good tool. Like, you know, like Kirsty was saying, if you can showcase your work, a lot of people do research before booking in with anyone nowadays. So they'll research people on Instagram, find out what they're, you know, what kind of work they do. Also, like things like Google reviews, all of these kind of things. Of any previous client that you have worked with.
What about Yelp, Trustpilot? There's loads of those kind of websites, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. The more kind of platforms like that they can get on, the better as well, because especially, you know, if they are at a point where they've already got their own website, the more backlinks you can get from other websites like Yelp and Google and etc. helps to boost their you know, boost their searchability in Google. And
then just going back to sort of the very first thing that we talked about, Debbie, do you think that those online booking services are helpful to these micro businesses? Because I do worry that, you know, sometimes you are at home and you're working and, you know, is that not a sort of, that surely they can help you promote?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely need to find some platforms, because if you don't have a receptionist and a, you know, or this thing, someone to help you with your bookings, then you don't want to miss opportunities. If you're out doing a treatment, you don't want to miss out on someone coming in. So there are ways of doing that. Obviously there's online platforms, there are platforms that you can book via, which is still sort of your own thing. The other thing, and also the way that people book now, some people might be sitting there at 9-10 o'clock at night and go, oh, I quite fancy a you know, a manicure tomorrow or something like that. And you're not going to have someone sat on the phone at 10 o'clock at night. So if they can pop on and quickly book, I do think that does have an impact, and I do think people do use that. So we have a combination of, you know, we still take about 80% of our bookings through the phone, but we do have the ability to book certain treatments online, and we do get an uptake with that.
Are they cost effective though, those the online bookings? They must be, I mean, reasonable. They're not.
Yeah, I think imagine if you got 5 bookings a week through something like that, even if you are having to pay sort of 5 or 10%, then it's better than not having those 5 bookings, and it allows you to grow your business. So it's understanding the value of these different things. If you had to hire a receptionist, it would probably cost you a lot more, but there does come a point where that scale starts to tip, and then actually you go, that's not worth it anymore, I'm better off getting a receptionist. And that's when your business is growing, and that's a great position to be in.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to sort of close out on the communication piece, I think that I know a lot of people that work in this industry, and I still go on my phone on an app, look at a couple of reviews, search locally wherever I am, will book an appointment, and I think that does I can imagine that builds new customs. So, you know, just in terms of, I'm sure we've all got lots of clients that are desperate to come back, but I think that there is an opportunity there for some people who are new.
I mean, one tip for someone that's new coming into something is try and find people that you complement and see if you can strike up a working relationship with them.
Right.
That can often be a great way of doing things. You know, for instance, I've got a laser skin clinic, but I work very closely with a doctor that does injectables. I've got another dermatologist that's going to be doing part-time. I'm talking to a nutritionist. So even, you know, I don't want to perform those things myself, but I do want someone else that can do them. And it means that my clients are better looked after because there's a team of us that all work together.
Yeah, I did say actually a little while ago, and I can't remember when it was, maybe might have been before COVID, that I did see the multidisciplinary sort of almost like boutique style clinic being the way forward, because I think that, you know, there are a number of things that I know I want done when we're out of lockdown, and I'm going to have to go to a variety of different places to do it. And if things were all under one roof, it would make my life a lot easier. I've got one final question for you guys, and then we have to wrap it up. What impact do you think the last 12 months will have on clients' mental well-being, and do you think we're equipped to deal with it?
I think we're all going to be supporting each other, and you know, and I think it's going to take a long time for people to fully recover, but I believe that we are. I mean, we've made it this far, and I don't know, my own feeling is that yes, we will be helping them, but they will also be helping us, I think.
Andy?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we also need to appreciate our own limitations as well, because although there is a therapy side to what we do, we're not psychotherapists. So if we do get any clients in who we do, you know, have some concerns about, or we're worried, that actually we need to hopefully be able to handle that in a way that it can strike up a conversation to maybe refer that on to somebody who's more qualified to deal with that than us. Yeah. I think
that there's a number of things that obviously you see that other people don't. So you could probably spot the signs of domestic violence on a patient or a client. I work with a guy who runs an organisation called Lions Barber Collective, who he trains people to spot the signs of suicide, you know, people that are feeling suicidal. So I think you're sort of very much, like you say, in a position to be able to sort of maybe notice something's not quite right, but maybe not deal with that on the back end, and maybe that is that point where you make a referral. That's really good advice. Kirsty,
obviously I'm
got any runaway brides on the cards?
The most postponements for one bride so far is 6, so I'm going to be dealing with a lot of upset, emotional brides, basically their families. There's going to be lots of different things. We've had, unfortunately, obviously, a lot of people have lost their lives during this, and I deal a lot with brides that are desperately want their nan, or their father's not well.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And they've had to postpone their wedding, and maybe their first wedding date, they could have had that loved family member there, and now that family member is no longer with us. So I'm kind of gearing myself up to be able to cope with the wedding morning and be the support that they need me to be, because it's already a very emotionally charged morning on a wedding. But but can you imagine if somebody's lost a family member or something, or have had a really hard time during the pandemic? I think there's going to just be a lot of talking. And I'm actually quite pleased, because really weddings don't start until the 21st of June. But we've got from the 12th of April up until that point to really get the hair and makeup trials in. And when I go to my trials, I want to sit down, and I do this anyway, but I sit down and say, come and sit on the sofa, let's have a good old chat before we even start talking about hair and makeup.
Yeah.
You know, and the couple of trials I did sort of August, September last year, that's what we did. I wanted to hear, how has this affected you? Are you okay? And just kind of, you know, it might only take 10, 15 minutes, but to just sit and know that they understand that you care.
Yeah.
That's the main thing with brides. And I do genuinely care. And most people in the wedding industry, you have to be a certain type of person to work in the wedding
Yeah,
industry.
no, we've all been through the same thing, haven't we, the past 12 months, and no one's escaped it. So, you know, I think there's always going to be a certain sort of collaborative approach to getting everything back on track and getting life back, isn't there? You know, we're all going to have to work very hard over the next 12 months to really get things back to where they were. But, you know, like Debbie said, I feel very positive about our future. There's certainty in the services that we do. There's just been a renewed confidence in what we do. We feel better about what we do. We've definitely put our businesses and our industry on the map with the government. I can tell you that firsthand. There's I'm probably in meetings with them every week. I mean, every day, 5 times a week at least. So it's really turned around. So I think we're the only way is up, really. Thank you, everyone. So nice to actually physically talk to you all rather than flipping through your Instagram. And, you know, thanks to Beauty Back Trust for being an amazing, amazing team, great support for everyone in the industry. I will see you guys. I think I'm on at 4:30 with Leslie Blair from Babtac. Join us then. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Everyone.